of Walking Digital Corridors. I am your bearded sales guy, and the topic today is transitioning the conversation from getting to know you to more of a commercial one. So I'm joined by these two handsome fellows.
Yeah,
Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. I am Jordan Abbott, aka the Sales Poet. Yeah, good to be back on this lovely Thursday morning. It feels like spring has finally arrived
Yes.
in Paris. It's still cold, but the sun is shining, so I
Still-
can deal with the cold.
Still doing the ice bath?
Yeah, I didn't do it this morning. Yesterday did it. It was -1 outside, and it felt like it was close inside. No ice in the bath, but it was frosty.
Yeah. Nice. And Master Abbott number 2.
Good morning, everyone. Jensen Abbott, BDR at Content.ai. Pleasure to be here. Apologies if I keep muting myself because this cough just keeps creeping back somehow.
Yeah, you and Mum both. You can't seem to shake it.
I know.
You should try the ice bath.
Yeah.
Strengthen that immune system.
That's it.
And,
So an interesting topic I feel this morning. I think for a number of reasons. So I feel like there's two distinct groups of people in business development today. There's the group that are struggling to get conversations with their target audience. Therefore, the moment that they have that conversation, they can't risk losing it. And so that tension causes them to perhaps behave in not the most of natural ways. And then you've got this other group that are just so good at what they do, they can create this steady flow of new business conversations that are really just chats with their network, with their target audience, and they feel far more relaxed, far more able to have a chat. And it's surprising how many of those conversations actually progress into a commercial conversation. And I think you two are the perfect example of transitioning from one group, that first group, to the second group. And I witnessed it myself as we originally struggled as Sapiro when we were once all working very closely together. You boys, I think Jordan, you were getting maybe 1-2 meetings a week following a traditional insight-led outreach approach. And Jensen, you were even struggling to get 1 meeting a week following that insight-led approach, until we transitioned to social selling. And I must add, social selling in a very relationship-first approach.
Yeah.
And I think, Jordan, quote me if I get this wrong, but your meeting creation rate went from 1.3% to 9%.
Yeah.
Jensen, yours went from less than 1% to 6.7%. So they're the percentage of people that you sat calls with from those that you actually asked to have a call with. So astonishing uplifts in meeting creation rates, which found you both having chats with your audience.
Yeah.
Tell us.
So I'll jump in there, and please do stop me if I start rambling, because I've got quite a lot to say here. I think.
Don't worry, I will.
So I think there's a couple of things here. That dichotomy between the people that are having a lot of conversations and those that aren't, and maybe are feeling the tension. I think the former group that are struggling, or what I should say is, I think the difference there is, with one approach you can be truly buyer-centric, and with the other, because you don't have enough conversations, you still have your targets hanging over your head. You can never truly be buyer-centric, because you're going to do everything you can to push that conversation through. So I think that's the key differentiator there. The ability to enter those conversations with very little expectation. And what we're not doing here is bait and switching. We're not suggesting we have an intro call, a synergy call, to then go and try and qualify. we're genuinely just having this call. Sometimes, you don't get to that commercial conversation. Sometimes you just get to know the person, and then you book in a following call to maybe find out a little bit more about them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key difference here, because I think there is a stigma surrounding social selling, and the name doesn't really do it justice, because it's got selling in it. But I think a lot of people have bait and switched, and buyers or people have been burnt by that, expecting an individual, and then maybe the SDR's got their AE on the call because they're a decision maker, job title, and that's not a good buyer experience. But
no, it's not. So leaning on someone else to come in quick before the opportunity is lost. Can you maybe talk to this a little bit, Jensen? Because I know I don't want you to give too much detail away, because I know you've both gone off to pastures new, and you're both very successful in your own right, in your own different companies now. But how do you manage that pressure between you've got to speak to the right person as soon as possible and qualify in and out, versus, hang on, I'm building a relationship, I need to get to know this person or these people and find that pathway to value. Do you find that difficult to manage, or is it easy? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, look, from my experience personally, I find it easier. I mean, I would have to say thank you to yourself and others kind of around, right? But yeah, no, look, kind of leaning on some of the points that Jordan has said, and it's for me, it was dropping that expectation. That's where I found that actually I was able to actually have a conversation with that individual. I was actually able to get to know them better, because you don't have that pressure of thinking, right, I need to qualify, or I need to take this call to kind of a next step. It's actually kind of taking a step back, and while taking that step back, you're listening more. So when you're listening more, you're actually able to hear the pain or whatever they've had, but then it's linking it in a way that you're not kind of sat there with your spear waiting for them to kind of tell them their pain point, right? So you can harpoon them on the call. It's more just understanding, being empathetic, and kind of relating to that pain, to then finding that kind of small or for myself, it's finding that small little opening to then just try and get my foot in the door. But again, it's not saying, you're not wedging
your foot in the door.
No, not wedging myself in the door. It's kind of, that door is slightly ajar, and I'm doing the best that I can to have that door kind of open without me even pushing on it, right? So I'm trying to open that door with asking specific questions.
It's a good metaphor. I like the visualization. I'm almost visualizing actually stepping back from the doorway altogether, and by doing so, the door opens more for you.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to get at, right? You imagine you stepping back, and it's almost like a wind that's pushing that door open, and it feels weird saying that, right? Because you stepping away from the door opens more. But actually, for me, that's what's happened. It's when I don't put so much pressure on myself, or I don't actually kind of expect too much, relax, have that conversation to find out more about the individual, so then you can relate with them.
So what's working then? How do you break the ice? Let's talk about breaking the ice first before we talk about the transition point. What's working well for each of you?
I mean, there are a number of things for myself. It's finding out a little bit of information about the individual, LinkedIn profile, right? It's kind of having a little. Well, what I want to do is be able to actually build kind of a visual of this person before I meet them. Right? It's kind of having a look at their digital twin. What does their digital twin look like? Some kind of.
When you say digital twin, you mean their profiles?
Yeah, sorry, I mean LinkedIn profile, their social profiles.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, some people's social profiles are quite bare, so it's hard to actually get an understanding of that individual. But then for myself, I think it's also finding what other people connect with, right? Everyone's got family. A lot of people have kids, so it's also including that in, right? But finding a way to kind of include that in. So, hey, what did you do at the weekend? I was playing with my young daughter, and actually I've got a young daughter as well. And a lot of people were surprised when they hear that I've got a young daughter, right, because of my age, but it gives me kind of a platform to actually start building relationship and mutual connection in finding a topic that we can both relate to.
So I would say you're quite easy to talk to. So, you tend to sort of get on with people. It's quite easy and natural for you to enter into a conversation. For many, that's not the case.
Yeah.
So what advice, it doesn't have to be you, Jensen, but Jordan, what advice have you got for anyone that is starting the call? They want to avoid that uncomfortable silence, that uncomfortable period. What tips have you got for those that, just to get going, get started on the call?
I think, we wouldn't be British if we didn't make some sort of remark about the weather. As we got on the podcast this morning, it's a go-to. But I think one of the things that I do is look at what they're engaging with. I know the stat is that what is the stat in regards to the amount of people that post on LinkedIn? It's very small.
I think it's 1% of the billion users on LinkedIn. Only 1% post consistently. So
really small margin. So that's sometimes tough because a lot of people don't post. Yeah. But what I've found is people do drop a like. So I'll have a little look through what they've liked, what they've engaged with, what they've commented on. And then I'll talk to that topic or to that post even. I noticed you liked this post. What was it that resonated with you? Yeah. And then from there, you can just continue the conversation. Yeah. Easier said than done, but
I was going to say, to add as well, I think it's one thing I struggled with, and I think you can both agree, is I wouldn't kind of pause enough when on calls or speaking with people, and I would also speak too quickly. So for myself, actually speaking too quickly would actually confuse myself, which then actually I would kind of get myself in a bit of a sticky situation, because you're trying to have a conversation with someone while I'm speaking too fast, while I'm not allowing enough pauses to actually let myself think or the recipient think. And one thing to remember is silence isn't always a bad thing, right? Having that pause and that moment that you're both quiet isn't actually a bad thing, because it allows yourself and that recipient to think. And a lot of the time, if that recipient's talking and actually you stay actively listening and don't say anything, 9 times out of 10, they will continue talking. So it's kind of, for myself personally, to kind of avoid these kind of little hiccups or awkward moments, it was more, what can I kind of focus about myself to improve kind of my call etiquette, let's say.
Yeah. On the topic of sort of getting the conversation started, I do a couple of things. One is tell me about yourself. Maybe there's a very quick moment of addressing that mutual connection, that mutual topic that brought us together on the call. But I do like to say, hey, look, tell me about yourself, and then they start talking. Often, though, they say, no, you tell me about yourself first, and I quite like to have my personal story ready. So I've got a story ready, and there's some structure to that story, so I can talk about myself in a non-egotistical manner. It's more about kind of telling a story that I hope inspires the recipient to then feel like they want to tell their story. So I can say at some point, well, that's enough about me. You tell me about you. And then I've handed the baton to them. I find that works particularly well, because then I can flow into questions. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Tell me more about that. And then those questions can then just naturally flow into discovery, what we call in sales discovery, and qualification. And then it's sort of, it switches between some discovery type questions and qualification type questions that's just very natural for the recipient. They don't feel like they're going through BANT.
That was going to be my next thing, right?
Not very chick.
Yeah. But I was going to say though that, I mean, more for the listeners, right? Because I believe I know the answer, but I'm guessing that took you time to be able to actually kind of change your talk track into that specific way, in that you were able to kind of get comfortable with asking questions that you're not crossing the line, but it's more natural, and actually being able to kind of have that power. Did it take time to be able to kind of do that?
Yeah, I think it takes to become good at it. I mean, it takes time to become really good at anything, and I do still think I have a lot to learn. I mean, I'm reading this book at the moment, The 7 Stories Every Salesperson Must Tell. I mean, for me, learning is lifelong. Because I want to improve the approach. But yeah, I mean, it takes time to master any approach. Do you really ever fully master anything with so much change in the world?
Point. I think as well, in sales, we typically feel the brunt of those changes in the world because we are the front line. So those shifts in the market, those shifts in buyer behaviors, typically we're the first people to really bear the brunt of it.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing was the point you made, Jensen, earlier, where you have to take the expectation away. If you're constantly if you're trying too hard to push someone down a corridor and close those doors along the way, close, you put a degree of stress on yourself that I think causes you to behave in a non-natural manner. And then the recipient feels that. Like we were talking about the metaphor earlier, when you sort of step back and you tell us, you're able to tell a story, it's sort of, the recipient leans in a little bit and they kind of want to learn more. And if you've inspired something in their mind, or triggered a thought in their mind, then you've kind of done your job, and then they'll tell you whether or not they're interested.
Yeah, they'll invite you in.
Yeah,
I think on that point as well, though, right, is to add with kind of dropping the expectation as well, is that not everyone's going to want to talk to you. And don't get me wrong, some people are hard to have a conversation with.
And we're going to have bad days as well.
Yeah.
Exactly that, right? And don't get me wrong, sometimes we will wake up and we might be feeling ill, or our mood might be down, and that also kind of affects the way that you're not perform, but the way that you're actually able to communicate with people. But as well, I strongly kind of again leaning on that look, not everyone's going to want to have conversations, and some people are hard to talk to, and that's okay if it is. And don't look at that as almost like a failed call. Look at that as a learning, and think, actually, if I kind of go down this route again, how can I actually adapt and be more fluid with the way I communicate, so I can communicate with more people? Because everyone has styles of communicating, right?
As well, I think we have to appreciate whether or not the recipient that we're talking to, especially in a sales role, are they in market? Is there a need? Is there currently no need? They've chosen to have a conversation with you because you've teed up the conversation as a synergy call or a get to know you call, which you guys are doing really well. You kind of create an opportunity for yourselves to then apply directional questioning as a technique. And I know we've talked about that on a previous podcast. You kind of set yourselves up to then leverage directional questioning to uncover a need, and then increase the number of opportunities you're creating for yourself because of that fact, compared with a call that's been set up because they've downloaded a white paper, you've got an intent signal, and you're like a dog with a bone, or a shark smelling blood in the water.
It's
very different worlds.
Massively so, and I think I have days where I sort of struggle to an extent, because I've come from that previous world. When I was at Vidyard, it was a lot more transactional. Typically the expectation was, okay, well, I want to flip it to an AE, or there's not an opportunity, and so I do have days where I'm like, feeling frustrated, and it's that expectation that was in that world that is now not there because of the approach that I'm taking. And I wholeheartedly believe this is the right approach. And I think one of the things
your buyers would as well, your potential customers. Yeah,
without a doubt. And I think one of the things that I do to try and recenter myself, and I'm very grateful that you've embedded it within us, is reporting religiously.
Yeah.
Because it does help to manage the pressure, manage the expectations, not only internally, but also leading up, right? Because that reporting, that visibility has allowed me to believe in it, because it's there, the data doesn't lie. But additionally, I can then use that to manage the conversations upwards, right? Use that as maybe an early warning indicator. Okay, well, I'm not quite achieving what I wanted to. What levers can I pull further down that's going to have an influence?
And when you say levers, you mean what behavior do I need to change today in order to impact the performance tomorrow?
Exactly.
That reminds me, before you go on to your next point, Jordan, Jensen, have you submitted your reporting yet?
I knew that was going to come. I had a feeling. I had a real big feeling. I thought, I've got away with it here. I thought the conversation's transition a bit. I've got to keep my mouth shut. No,
have you done yours, Jordan?
This week I haven't actually. Okay. So it serves as a good reminder.
Okay. Before we jump onto our prep call for next week, can you both do that?
Yeah, I've got the data in a spreadsheet. I just need to update that.
Sorry.
I thought I was hoping again because I was sitting there thinking, I don't think I've done mine either.
Well, when you mentioned reporting, I thought, oh no, it's coming.
But no, it really does. It serves those two purposes for me. It gives me the clarity and the belief that I don't need to feel the pressure in these calls, because it ends up being detrimental to the success. But then additionally, it gives me that clarity so I can have the conversations upwards and start to project what I'm expecting to the outputs to be.
But also, to add to that, I would also say that reporting is great for the days that you are finding it tough and you're kind of feeling a little bit lost in what you're trying to do. It's a bit like, I'm having one of those days. I will always find that having a look at that reporting actually kind of motivates me, because I can see, actually, this is what I done last week. But if I can reach that goal, what if my performance was to then improve, right? So it also gives me little kind of benchmarks and targets to hit and to always try and improve on, and actually not then thinking, I've got to then hit this target. You can make it a little bit more creative and fun, right? And find like a process that's enjoyable for you to be able to hit and reach those targets within the reporting that we do.
And in case anyone's wondering, I was just going to wrap things up, George. I was conscious of time, unless you wanted to add anything before I do.
No, you wrap things up, and then I think we can go to final remarks.
Cool. In case anyone's wondering, the reporting that we're talking about is what we call the lead measures. So the things that we need to be doing on a daily basis that improve the probability of creating conversations with our respective target audiences, and then tracking how many of those conversations progress to a meaningful next step. Because only then do we really have the opportunity to convert that conversation into a commercial one. And so, no secrets are being shared. It's more a case of holding ourselves accountable for driving the right behaviors each and every day to increase our probability of success. So with that, I want to bring it to a close this week. Thank you for those listening to us chat and ramble about the things that we love doing, weirdly. Any final comments from you boys?
Yeah, it was just, that visual that we spoke about in relation to jamming your foot in the door compared to being invited in. And I think, there are certain people that when they knock on the door, if they're wearing their company's gilet, maybe you'll pretend not to be in. Whereas if it's just a person, you'll likely open the door, you'll have a bit of curiosity, have a conversation with them. So in those calls, be a person.
Yeah.
Be a person first. And if it then leads to them asking, oh, so what do you do in your 9 to 5? That's when, okay, you've been invited in. Now I can talk about the value we provide, the challenges we solve. And that naturally leads into that directional questioning piece.
Yeah, which is why the two of you are seeing a 6.7% and 9% call rate, respectively. I've seen mine creep up to 18% from the study that we're doing across a range of sales experiences. It's a 14-month study and counting. We're just in our 15th month now. We're seeing the average call rate is 10.5% across the board, and that's from SDR through to sales leader, business leader.
Mine's crept up to 9.6.
Okay.
Because of voice notes, which I think we've got next. Is it next week or in the coming weeks? We're going to talk about voice notes.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. Hot topic, I think, across the BDR, SDR field. Good. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend. For those of you that are F1 fans, join us tomorrow, 1:00 UK time, where we'll be chatting F1 live banter.
Indeed.
And looking forward to dissecting what may or may not be happening with Max Verstappen in the coming weeks.
Yeah, well, the Red Bull team generally. But yeah, we'll see. Augusto can't make it tomorrow, so we do have an open seat if anyone wants to join.
Open drive.
Yeah. There's a seat available. Who's going to take it?
Yeah. Cool. All right, guys. Speak to you next week.
Awesome.